Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we will talk about the Germany's public pension system. It is one of the strongest social security systems in the world. However, there is an important reality that many people only discover too late. The public pension alone is usually not enough to maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. Many assume that decades of pension contributions will automatically guarantee financial comfort later in life. But in reality, the public pension is designed mainly as a basic safety net, not a complete retirement solution. Understanding this early can significantly change how you can prepare for your future. So, in this video, we will break it down how the German public pension system actually works, why pensions are often lower than expected, why Germany's demographic challenge plays such a big role, and what happens if you leave Germany, and finally, what other retirement options exist. The German pension system operates on what is known as a pay as you go model. This means that contributions paid by today's working population are used directly to finance the pensions of today's retirees. In other words, the system relies on a continuous flow of younger workers supporting the older generation. This model worked extremely well for decades. For example, in the 1960s, there were roughly 5 workers supporting every one retiree. Today, in 2026, the ratio has dropped to around 2.5 workers per retiree, and projections suggest that by 2030 it could fall close to just 2 workers per retiree. This shift creates significant pressure on both the workforce and the state. So, why is this happening? First, Germany is one of the oldest societies in the world, with nearly a quarter of the population now aged 65 or older. Second, the birth rate remains very low at around 1.4 children per woman, well below the replacement level. At the same time, life expectancy continues to rise due to advances in healthcare and living standards. The result is a double imbalance. Fewer workers entering the system, while retirees live longer and draw benefits for more years. This creates one of the most important long-term structural challenges for the German pension system. The system in Germany is generally structured around 3 pillars. The first is the public pension system known as the Gesetzliche Rentenversicherung (GRV). This is a mandatory state pension scheme and almost all employees in Germany contribute to it. A minimum contribution period of 5 years is required to become eligible for pension benefits. The second pillar consists of company pensions, often referred to as occupational pensions. The third pillar includes private retirement options. These range from private pension insurance products to more flexible investment approaches such as ETFs, stock market investing, and other state subsidized savings schemes like Reister and Ruru pensions, as well as additional personal investment strategies. We will explore all of this in detail throughout this video. However, it is important to understand that the public pension forms the foundation of the system. At the same time, the second and third pillars are becoming increasingly important over time as individuals take greater responsibility for their retirement planning. Let's start with the public pension system and how it is calculated so you can understand what you might receive in retirement and why it is often not sufficient on its own. According to the Deutsche Rentenversicherung, the official institution responsible for statutory pensions in Germany, the average gross public pension in 2023 was around 1,100 euro per month. More specifically, the average for men was approximately 1,430 euro, while for women it was significantly lower at around 930 euro per month. This gap is often explained by factors such as part-time work, career breaks, parental leave, or generally fewer years of full-time employment. Why are pensions often lower than expected? The system is based on the pension point model known as Rentenpunkte or officially Entgeltpunkte. The principle is straightforward. If you earn roughly the national average salary for 1 year, you receive 1 pension point. In 2026, this average salary benchmark is around 52,000 gross per year, more precisely 51,944 euro. Earning exactly this amount results in 1 full pension point for that year. If you earn less, you receive a proportional fraction of a point. For example, earning half the average salary gives you half a pension point. If you earn more than the average, you receive more than 1 point, but only up to a limit. In 2026, the maximum is about 1.95 pension points per year, which applies at an income of roughly 101,000 euro or higher. Even if you earn significantly above that threshold, you cannot accumulate more points beyond this cap. When you reach retirement, all of your accumulated pension points are added together and then multiplied by the current value of a single pension point. Each pension point has a fixed monetary value which is updated regularly. At the moment, one pension point is worth approximately 40 euro 79 cents, which you can round it to around 40 euro 0.8 cents for simplicity. Your total monthly pension is calculated using a simple formula: total pension points into point value. For example, if you have accumulated 30 pension points over your working life, your gross monthly pension in 2026 would be 30 into 40 euro 0.79 cents, which is approximately 1223 euros. So your pension income would be roughly 1220 euro per month. It is important to keep in mind that this is the gross amount, not the net, meaning taxes and health insurance contributions still need to be deducted from it. Historically, the value of a pension point in Germany has increased by roughly 2 to 3% per year on average, partly reflecting inflation. In many cases, pension adjustments have followed inflation closely in order to preserve purchasing power, although this is not guaranteed. To give a rough forward-looking estimate, if the current value of one pension point is 40 euro 79 cents today, you can project different scenarios over a 30-year period. A conservative assumption of around 1.5% annual growth would place the value of pension point at approximately 64 to 65 euros after 30 years. A moderate assumption of 2% annual growth would bring it to around 74 to 75 euros. In a more optimistic scenario with 3% annual growth, the value could reach around 100 euro per point. However, a higher nominal value does not automatically mean a higher standard of living. Even if the point value increases significantly over time, its purchasing power is likely to remain similar due to inflation. In other words, you may see higher numbers but not necessarily more real wealth in today's terms. It is also important to remember that these figures are gross amounts. Taxes, health insurance contributions, and long-term care insurance are still deducted before you receive your net pension. You can estimate your future pension by calculating how many pension points you are likely to accumulate by retirement and then multiplying the total by different projected point values, conservative, moderate, or optimistic scenarios. In most cases, the final result will still fall within a broad range similar to the current average, roughly 1,100 euro to 1,400 euro per month. If you want a more precise estimate, you can use a pension point calculator which provides a personalized projection based on your income history and expected contributions. Parents in Germany can also receive pension points for raising children. This is designed to compensate for the fact that many parents reduce working hours or temporarily step back from their careers during early childcare years. For children born after 1992, up to 3 pension points can be credited per child, typically 1 point per year for the first 3 years of childcare. For children born before 1992, the system is slightly different, with credit generally covering around 2.5 years instead of 3. By default, these childcare related pension points are assigned to the mother. However, parents can jointly declare that the points should be allocated to the father or shared differently between them. If childcare periods overlap due to multiple children being born close together, the credited periods can be extended accordingly. One important detail is that these childcare periods are not always automatically applied. Parents need to actively register them with the Deutsche Rentenversicherung to ensure they are properly recognized in their pension record. The official retirement age in Germany is gradually increasing. At the moment, it is around 66 years and a few months, and it is set to rise up to 67 years. However, for younger generations, it is realistic to expect that the effective retirement age may move even higher, potentially closer to 70 in the long term. Early retirement is still possible, currently starting from age of 63, but only under certain conditions. The key trade-off is a permanent reduction in pension benefit. For each month you retire early, your pension is reduced by almost 0.3%. This corresponds to a reduction of roughly 3.6% per year of early retirement. There are exceptions. If you have contributed for at least 45 years, you may be eligible for early retirement without penalties. In addition, Germany offers a mechanism to offset early retirement reduction through voluntary contribution. From the age of 50 onwards, individuals can make additional payments into the pension system to compensate for expected deductions if they plan to retire earlier. For example, at 63 instead of 67. This allows you to partially or fully reduce the financial penalty associated with early retirement. These contributions must be planned in advance and coordinated with the pension insurance system as they are based on your expected retirement timing and contribution history. At this point, you may ask, can you simply buy additional pension points to increase your future pension, not just to avoid early retirement penalties? The answer depends on your situation. If you are a regular employee who is already mandatorily insured in public pension system, you generally cannot freely purchase extra pension points whenever you want. In practice, the main way to accumulate more points is simply by earning a higher salary. The higher your income, the more pension points you receive each year, up to the annual maximum of roughly 2 points. However, there are a few important exceptions. The first exception is related to early retirement. As mentioned earlier, from the age of 50 onwards, you are allowed to make special additional payments into the pension system if you plan to retire early. These payments are specifically designed to reduce or offset the pension deductions caused by early retirement. It is important to understand that these payments are calculated individually, follow legal limits, and are not intended as a general method to freely boost your pension. The second exception involves missing contribution periods, especially during education. If you spend time in school, university, or other recognized training periods where no pension contributions were made, you may still be allowed to make voluntary back payments for some of these gaps. However, this option is generally only available until the age of 45. So, in summary, before age 45, you may still have the opportunity to compensate for eligible study or education periods. From age 50 onwards, you may make additional payments to reduce early retirement penalties. Finally, if you are not compulsorily insured in the German pension system, for example, if you are self-employed, freelancing, or living abroad, you usually have much more flexibility. In these cases, voluntary pension contributions are often possible, allowing you to continue building pension entitlements even without mandatory employment contributions. You can find more detailed official information about voluntary contributions and additional pension payments on this website. The information is primarily available in German, but browser translation tools usually work quite well for navigating it. Finally, an important question regarding the public pension system. What happens if you leave Germany? There are generally three main scenarios. The first scenario is if you contributed to the German pension system for at least 5 years, which is the minimum qualifying period as we discussed earlier. In this case, you keep your pension entitlement. Once you reach retirement age, Germany can continue paying your pension even if you leave abroad. However, if you only contributed for 5 years, the pension amount will naturally be relatively small because your accumulated pension points are limited. The second scenario applies mainly to non-EU citizens who worked in Germany for less than 5 years. In many cases, they may become eligible for a pension refund. One important condition applies here. You generally must not have been working in Germany for at least the previous 24 months before applying for the refund. There are online tools and services that can help you estimate eligibility and potential refund amounts. For example, Pension Refund Germany provides an eligibility check and general guidance for people who left Germany before completing the minimum contribution period. The third scenario concerns EU citizens or people from countries that have social security agreements with Germany. Within the European Union, pension systems are coordinated. This means that the years you worked in Germany still count toward your overall pension rights across EU countries. For example, if someone worked 5 years in Germany and later worked 20 years in France, these periods are coordinated together for pension eligibility purposes. Germany also has pension and social security agreements with many non EU countries, including Turkey and others. Depending on the agreement, your contribution years in Germany may still be recognized even after returning to your home country. The exact rule depends on the specific bilateral agreement between Germany and the respective country, so it is always important to check the details relevant to your nationality and long-term plans. The second pillar of the German retirement system is the company pension, also known as occupational pension insurance. This is an additional retirement plan usually arranged through your employer. Many employers in Germany offer company pension schemes, and they are considered one of the more tax efficient ways to build long-term retirement savings as an employee. There are several types of company pensions in Germany, but the most common form is what is known as direct insurance. In practice, when people casually mention a company pension, they are often referring to this model. The most common setup is called salary conversion, Eingeldumwandlung. This means that part of your gross salary is redirected into a pension plan before taxes and social contributions are deducted. As a result, you are effectively investing for retirement while reducing your immediate tax burden and social contribution costs. For example, let's say €100 per month is redirected into your company pension. This amount comes from your gross salary and not your net salary. Because of the tax and social contribution savings, the actual reduction in your monthly take-home pay may only feel like around 50 to 70 euros depending on your income and tax bracket. Another major advantage is that employers are legally required in many cases to add at least 50% extra if they save social contributions through this arrangement. So if you contribute €100 per month, your employer must typically add at least €15 on top. This means that €115 is invested into your retirement plan each month, even though your net salary may only decrease by around half that amount. What happens later during retirement? The accumulated capital can usually be paid out in different ways, as a monthly pension, as a lump sum payment, or as a combination of both. The exact payout structure depends on your contract and the pension provider chosen by your employer. A very common question usually asked is what happens if you change job or get fired or move to another employer. The important thing to know is that pension contracts generally remain yours. There are several possible outcomes. The most common option is simply leaving the contract as it is. The pension stays with the existing provider, no new contributions are made, and the investment continues running until retirement. The second option is to continue the contract privately. In this case, you continue paying contributions yourself directly to the pension provider. However, your former employer will no longer add contributions. A third possibility is transferring the contract to your new employer. This usually only works if both employers cooperate with the same pension provider, which is not always the case. Finally, many people simply start a new company pension with their new employer while keeping the old contract untouched. Over time, this can result in multiple smaller pension contracts from different employers and providers. There are also two important details that you should keep in mind. First, there are vesting rules. Employer contributions do not always become fully yours immediately. In many cases, you must be at least 21 years old and have remained in the company for at least 3 years before gaining full ownership of certain employer-funded portions. Second, although company pensions provide tax advantages during the contribution phase, the payouts in retirement are still taxable. During retirement, you generally pay income tax as well as health insurance and long-term care insurance contributions on these pension payments. The third pillar of the retirement system includes private retirement options. These generally can be divided into two categories: state-subsidized private pension products, fully private investment options. Let's start with the state-subsidized options. There are two major names you will often hear when researching retirement planning in Germany. the Riester pension and the Ruhr pension. The Riester pension was introduced by the German government in 2002 to help close the growing gap between the public pension and the actual income people need during their retirement. It is a state supported private retirement plan designed to encourage individuals to build additional retirement savings alongside the public pension system. To be eligible for Riester pension, you generally must already contribute to the general public pension system. This includes employees, recipients of unemployment benefits, civil servants, parents on parental leave, and even some self-employed individuals who voluntarily contribute to the public pension system. To receive the full government support, you typically need to contribute around 4% of your annual gross income up to a legally defined maximum limit. In return, the government provides direct annual subsidies, additional child allowances for families, and possible tax advantages through deductible contributions. At retirement, the accumulated savings are usually paid out as lifelong monthly pension. However, the Riester pension also has several major criticisms and disadvantages. First, it's considered quite complex. The system involves many rules, conditions, forms, and administrative details, which makes it difficult for people to fully understand or optimize. Second, many Riester contracts have relatively high administrative and product fees. Over long periods, these costs can significantly reduce the overall investment performance and returns. And third, for many middle and high income earners, the overall financial benefit is often relatively limited compared to the effort, restrictions, and costs involved. Because of this, Riester pensions are often considered most beneficial for two specific groups of people: lower income earners who benefit strongly from government support, and families with multiple children who receive substantial child subsidies. Outside of these groups, many people today prefer more flexible and potentially higher performing alternatives for long-term retirement investing. The second major state subsidized private pension option is the Ruhr pension, also known as the Basisrente or basic pension. It was introduced in 2005 and is designed mainly for self-employed individuals, freelancers, and high income earners who may not be fully covered by the standard public pension system. Unlike the Riester pension, which focuses heavily on direct government subsidies, the Ruhr pension mainly provides tax advantages during your working years. Contributions made into the Ruhr pension are generally tax deductible as special expenses, which can significantly reduce your taxable income. One major advantage is flexibility in contributions. You can increase, reduce, or pause payments depending on your financial situation. The annual contribution limits are also relatively high, around 26,000 per year in recent years for a single person, which makes this option especially attractive for people with high or fluctuating incomes. In return, the invested capital is locked in until retirement and is later paid out as a lifelong monthly pension. Some of the key advantages include strong tax benefits during your working years, flexible contribution amounts, guaranteed lifelong pension payments after retirement, and in many cases legal protection of the assets from creditors. Of course, there are also very important limitations. First, there is no full lump sum withdrawal option. Unlike some investment products, you generally cannot withdraw the entire accumulated capital at once. Second, inheritance options are limited. In many contracts, remaining capital cannot simply be transferred to children or other heirs unless additional protections are specifically included. Third, the pension payments are taxable during retirement. The tax benefit comes mainly during the contribution phase and not during the payout. And finally, flexibility is limited once the contract is established. While contributions can usually be paused even for long periods, the contract itself is difficult to fully exit or cancel. Overall, the Ruhr pension is often considered more suitable for self-employed individuals, freelancers without access to employer pension schemes, high-income earners looking for tax optimization, and people planning to stay long-term within the German tax system. Finally, there are fully private retirement investments that are not subsidized by the state. These include private pension insurance products offered by financial companies and platforms such as Feather and similar providers, With these plans, you contribute a flexible monthly amount and in return you build up a private retirement pension that can later provide additional income during your retirement. Beyond pension insurance products, many people also rely on more independent long-term investment strategies such as savings account, ETFs, stock market investing, real estate, or other long-term investment portfolios. The overall goal of these private investments is simple: to bridge the gap between what you are expected to receive from the public and company pension systems and the actual amount of money needed to maintain a comfortable and dignified standard of living during retirement. As the pressure on public pension system continues to grow, private retirement planning has become increasingly important for long-term financial security. To connect all the dots together, let's go through a simplified retirement simulation. Let's assume we have a single person who is currently 30 years old. For example, someone who came to Germany after completing a bachelor's degree, studied for a master's here, and then started their first full-time job at age 30. Of course, your situation may be different, you may have arrived earlier or later, but the goal here is to simply understand the logic behind the retirement planning. For this example, we will assume an annual gross salary of 52,000 euro. Why this number? Because in 2026, this is roughly the average salary benchmark that gives you one full pension point per year. To simplify the calculations even further, we will assume the salary increases by around 2 to 3% annually, inflation also averages around 2 to 3% annually, and the pension point value also rises by roughly 2 to 3% per year over the long term. This allows us to assume that the person continues earning approximately one pension point per year throughout their career. If this person retires at the age of 67, that means 37 working years and therefore roughly 37 pension points accumulated. Let's calculate step by step. First, we estimate the minimum retirement income needed to live with dignity. This includes rent, utilities, food, healthcare, and other essential living expenses. Let's assume today a single person needs around 1200 euro net per month just to cover basic living comfortably. If inflation averages 3% annually over the next 37 years, then maintaining the same purchasing power in retirement would require approximately 3,500 net euro per month in the future. So, this becomes our target retirement income. Keep in mind, this example is for only a person. If you have a non-working spouse with little or no pension entitlement, your required household income could be significantly higher. Next, we estimate the public pension. We assume this person accumulated 37 pension points. If in the future, the pension point value rises to around 85 euro per point, a middle ground estimate between conservative and optimistic projections, then the gross pension would be 37 into 85 euros, that is approximately 3,145 euro gross per month. After taxes, health insurance and long-term care contributions, the net amount may realistically end somewhere between 2,250 to 2,500 per month. Now let's estimate the company pension. Suppose the employee contributes 100 euro monthly into a company pension plan and the employer adds the required contribution on top. Depending on the contract and future returns, this might provide roughly 150 euro net per month during retirement. Now we combine everything. Estimated retirement need is 3,500 euro net per month. Estimated public pension is around 2,350 euro net per month and estimated company pension is around 150 euro net per month. Total estimated retirement income becomes 2,500 net per month. This leaves a retirement gap of approximately 1,000 per month. This is exactly the reason why private retirement investing becomes so important. That remaining gap usually needs to be covered through ETFs, stock investments, real estate, personal savings, private pension insurance, or other long-term investment strategies. The earlier you start building additional retirement savings, the easier and cheaper it becomes over the long term. The main takeaway from this video is simple. The German pension system provides an important foundation and a strong social safety net, but for most people, the public pension alone will likely not be enough to fully maintain their lifestyle during retirement. The earlier you understand how the system works, estimate your future needs, and start building additional retirement savings, the more financial freedom and security you will have later in life. Whether through company pensions, ETFs, private investments, real estate, or other long term strategies, retirement planning is no longer optional. It is becoming a personal responsibility. And remember, time is one of the most important and powerful factors in investing. Even small amounts invested consistently over decades can make a massive difference in your future. So don't wait until your 50s or 60s to think about retirement. The best time to start planning was yesterday. The second best time is today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next video.